archetype. He's got top 64 at the EUIC in 2017 and also has a top 16 at the Leipzig Regional Championships over in 2016.
Absolutely. Not bad accomplishments at all. We got two very good European players here. We've got a deck we absolutely were expecting, a deck which I'm willing to bet we were not. And let's not forget, Tord got a top 4 finish at the Players' Cup 1 with Inteleon VMAX.
Yeah.
Back when that was a deck we were not taking seriously. So I think at this stage, whatever Tord's playing, we just kind of trust it. So
yeah, Tord likes surprises. He's built his own decks. He's made Zoropod, the Zoroark Gliscopod, that came out the gates and won the EUIC. For the Oceania Championships, he also created the Zoroark Gardevoir deck, so his homebrews end up becoming the new meta.
He is just that gosh darn good. So let's head on into this game and see exactly what this weird Excadrill deck of Tord's can do. And although it's not the way I play Excadrill, you've got to love. Anytime we can feature Excadrill on stream, it's not that often that we can. It makes me very happy indeed. Of course, it's going up against a presumptive best deck in the format, so it's going to have some work to do.
Yeah, and the ADP deck, if they are able to get their GX attack off, they really do put the clock on any deck. These one prize Pokemon that Tord is trying to use, they pretty much still give up the multiple prizes. So this is one of the more difficult matchups in general. Tord is playing a number of things that he can do to make it awkward, of course. He plays hammers, he has tons of stalling opportunities with Boss's Orders Galamine combos, so plenty of things he's going to do to throw roadblocks in the way for Tobias.
Yeah, and he is a very good player. This is a very complicated deck. There are lots of little tricks, lots of one-offs. You can see a little bit of a sneak at the Pokemon line there as he's searching his deck. Every single Pokemon in there has got a very specific purpose. They all do different weird things, but it looks like now he's doing what we're probably going to see from Tobias on his turn, going and searching out that Zacian V and just queuing up that Intrepid Sword. Towards playing a deck based around stage 1 Pokemon, it can often take a couple of turns to really get rolling. Being able to draw extra cards on those turns before you're able to attack, that's a pretty nice advantage.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels you can draw from Tord's deck to previous renditions of this sort of control archetype where you deal with their hand first, you use things like Reset Stamp, you use Lieutenant Surge and Jesse James to remove their hand entirely, then you use Chip Chip Ice Axe to manipulate the top of your opponent's deck, so hopefully they don't do anything, and that's when your deck kicks into gear and tries to loop some situational cards, be it trapping Pokemon or be it crushing hammers to remove your opponent's board entirely of energy here.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on in Tord's deck, which is going to be quite awkward. Although I don't believe, and stop me if I'm reading this wrong, I don't believe Tord is actually playing any Crushing Hammer.
Oh, true.
He's relying on Team Yell Grunt to get rid of that energy, plus Wondrous Labyrinth to increase their energy cost. So it's a little... I was surprised when I looked at his deck list and saw there were no Crushing Hammers, but Tord knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it looks, in that case, it's full on trying to just, I will trap you eventually and run you out of switch cards. Trying to attack the hand by spamming Reset Stamp and Jesse James alongside Lieutenant Surge means that you just hit their switches, essentially, and run them out of stuff. So Tobias, he leads off with ADP. It's always a good thing to see for you. Does have his Quick Ball as well for a Zacian. Interestingly, discards his Mawile. Mawile is actually a really nice attacker in this matchup because you need to be hitting low amounts of damage, and it allows you to chain attacks much more easily than Brave Blade does, because Brave Blade forces you in and out of the active all the time. So might be doing Tord a small favor here in this opening turn.
Absolutely, and Tobias needs to think very carefully about his bench. The ideal situation is that he plays it a little more slowly. He knows Tord isn't playing Crushing Hammer, does hit an energy off the Intrepid Sword, which is huge, and basically just sets up a board with a couple of attackers, and all you do is make sure you have an attack every single turn, and you try and make yourself unstallable. A single Dedenne just being trapped in the active, something simple as that could end up being the difference between a win and a loss for Tobias here.
Tord is going to fire off a 1 copy of Sonya, looking to go ahead and establish his draw engine by the looks of things, picking out double Minccino. He also does play Type Null and Silvally GX in his deck for additional draw and a bit of safety net against things like Marnie. But looks like opting for the Mincinos for now. Getting those established, he has another Capture Energy as well that can get him even more Pokemon into play. as well as Stellar Wish, Communication. He's got a ton of options here. Essentially, he wants to grow his hand size every single turn, open up those options for him to really make things awkward for Tobias.
Yeah, and Tobias is in an awkward position because what you really want is a nice, slow, considered setup so you're not playing any extra Pokemon and you can attack with whatever's on the board. And you need to have a really fast start so you get going before Tord starts doing the kind of stuff this deck does. And that is kind of the polar opposites of each other. And really, for Tobias, it is just trying to get something going before Tord's deck really starts rolling. Because when Tord starts doing all of those stalling things, getting rid of energy with stuff like Team Yell Grunt, and just trying to slow Tobias down, that is going to make life extremely awkward.
So we do see the Capture Energy establish the first Drill Bar. We are also going to see a Stellar Wish here. It does give him a couple of options. The Pokédoll can be a card certainly used in this matchup to buy yourself time. Does also eye up the Bird Keeper, which just simply goes deeper into the deck for additional draws. We are going to see that as the choice, and he could simply end on the Intrepid Sword here.
Yeah, always nice to end your turn on an Intrepid Sword. Draw yourself 3 cards. There's no metal energy in Tord's deck. He's not getting any energy from Intrepid Sword, but just giving yourself that hand advantage because you can't attack. You might as well end your turn and draw some cards.
And he knows that Tobias's turn is basically just always GX attack here. Nothing's getting knocked out. So he knows he has another turn to get a free Stellar Wish in. He's got a couple of communications to start trying to use Make Do with his Cinchinos that he'll be probably searching out. So his hand size has already grown monstrously.
Yeah, that is one of the larger hand sizes we've seen in all the games we've covered here. That's already quite a huge hand. I mean, you see Tobias, I'm willing to bet his hand is not as bad as it may appear. It looks like he is just going for, I'm going to Ultimate Ray, and I'm going to put energy on my Zacian, and I am just going to do that. That is absolutely fine by me. And he only needs 3 knockouts with Ultimate Ray to go ahead and actually end the game. So I do like this from Tobias. It's a very slow game, but I think it's the way you've got to go about doing it.
So Tord starts to Make Do first, does draw into some Pokédoll, so now he has the option to Bird Keeper. He's actually holding on to these Pokédolls for now, and it's just going to go into a Cinchino, which he can then retreat if he wants to. He does find himself an Excadrill. Not sure if there's anything he wants to reload just yet, but he is still going to put that into play. You always have to be aware that your opponent will probably try and use Hand Disruption against you. But let's look at Tobias's list here and see, again, looks to be they are also using a Skylar approach. So Tord's hand is going to grow astronomically here with no real response from Tobias's end.
And that is going to allow, and Tord's going to know that. So Tord is going to be able to just plan several turns ahead. And he knows I can use this supporter now because I've got the supporter for next turn. And honestly, he's probably going to give up a couple prizes here. That Cinchino in the active is probably not going to, if it stays in the active, and yeah, we got to go into the doll here, because otherwise, you know, Tobias is going to start taking prizes, and Tord can plan for this and potentially punish a bit more with Reset Stamp, give up a couple prizes, knowing you can make your opponent's job a lot more difficult. But as it stands at the moment, content to just put a Lily's Pokédoll in the active and draw even more cards of Intrepid Sword.
It's incredible that so many of these ADP decks have foregone using Marnie. One of your best defenses against some Fire Toolbox decks, stopping the Blacephalon, using Oricorio and growing a huge hand size. Going more aggressive with Skylar as sort of like a tech supporter instead really pays dividends for Tord here, because there's going to be no check to this hand size. He's going to be doing exactly what he wants every turn, and he can actually make game plans far in the future. So every Make Do he does is going to become really valuable for him.
Absolutely. Now, we do see Oranguru hit the bench there. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Tord is probably playing a Tool Scrapper here, because... Oh, no, he's not playing a Tool Scrapper.
No, just Gala mining stuff is really the main thing you can try and go for. The main reason Tobias puts this down, though, is because he knows that he can get handlocked. So you can try and use Primate Wisdom to get yourself out of Chip Chip Ice Axe. That's the main combo that he's trying to disrupt here. And he could even power up Whap Downs if he wants to, because they are enough to deal with the 1 prizes that, that Tord has on the field post that GX attack.
And we do see a water energy coming down, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, as weird as it is, that it seems like a bit of a liability, but like you say, there are plenty of good reasons to have it out, and everything Tobias is doing this game is going to have to be very, very considered. This is not the back and forth slugfest we often see from these Zacian focus decks. It is going to be a much slower, more considered game plan, unless Tobias can just grab a couple more boss's orders, and that could end the game very quickly, to be fair.
Uh-oh, that's a second wheezing in towards hand. There is the option to completely handlock the opponent this turn. Even with that reset stamp, he could use Jesse James and potentially even Birdkeeper as well if he wanted to for additional draw. Or he could try and combine Gala Mine with Boss's Orders. So many options here. The Lieutenant Surge is open to him. I'd be amazed if he doesn't use Lieutenant Surge this turn. He can reset his Lily's Pokédoll and also use a Stellar Wish here. That means he could be going for Reset Stamp, Lieutenant Surge, Birdkeep, and Jesse James, getting rid of both Wheezing to remove the 4-card hand that Tobias would be sat on. That seems to be a decent line for him. He's still trying to get to the bottom of the deck. That's still his mini goal. So many options, though.
I love how you're like, he can take out his entire hand and hand lock him and put down a Pokédoll. That seems like a pretty good play.
Interesting. Looking not to Surge here. Might just be going for the... Okay, so Tor's instead eyeing up the full options. So we are going to see the reset stamp. That means he probably is using Lieutenant Surge here. Lieutenant Surge, Jesse James, Birdkeeper. It's going to be the play. You Jesse James away, both Wheezing, and then you remove all 4 cards from Tobias. You're looking to hit Boss's Orders, of course, and you're always looking to hit Eldegoss, and you're looking to hit Switch cards as well. And that's really the big cards here. 2 Switch going to go Surrender Now from the Wheezing.
Oh, and he did hit a switch there from that as well. And that's the thing, it's not just putting your opponent down to a 0-card hand, it is all the useful resources that they did have in their hand that are now not available to them. So Birdkeeper now comes down, switches into that Lily's Pokédoll, and now we're in a situation where Tobias has a 0-card hand, and if he does attack, which obviously he can, he's attacking into a Lily's Pokédoll that doesn't give up a prize. And bearing in mind, the great thing that Escadrille does is recover cards from your discard pile back into your deck. It is the best version of Oranguru that we've got at the moment. So those Lily's Pokédoll, it's not like most games where when you deal with 4 of them, that's it, they're gone for the game. Those Lily's Pokédoll can come back turn after turn after turn.
And Tord is going to establish Drillbur here. Had a small debate whether or not he wanted Type Null to come down, but instead does just go for Drillbur, does establish an energy, and doesn't go for any Chip Ice Axe plays, simply ends on the Intrepid Sword. So it is a random card here. The reason to not spend Chips is that they already get a random card from Primal Wisdom anyway. A big Professor's Research rip comes in here. I mean, all it does is knock out a Pokédoll, but it still forces Tord to re-establish a handlock again this turn.
That's a pretty good 1-card top deck.
Pretty handy. I mean, Tord is holding on to Super Rod so he can reload his Wheezings. It's just that his deck size is still 10, so there's no guarantees that he hits everything yet. So there is potential for him to still miss things. Tobias is now able to Primate Wisdom, sometimes looking to protect cards, and obviously it will get shuffled deeper into the deck if he does choose to use Ultimate Ray here, which we have to assume he will.
Yeah.
So even things like switches, you don't want them in your hand, really. You want them in the deck. That's actually the safest place for them, so you can just randomly Wisdom into them. That's the best place for them.
Yeah, anything in your hand, like you say, it's very much at the mercy of Tord and his hand disruption. So, you know, that Oranguru really is putting in a shift, protecting cards, giving you access to a second card, which has not been placed by Chip Ice Axe, which is obviously huge. But you'll see, for all the work Tobias has done, he's taken 2 prizes. Having said that, maybe he's holding a Boss's Orders. But if Tord keeps going after his hand, there are only so many Boss's Orders Tobias is going to have access to. And hopefully there'll come a point where actually Boss's Orders just isn't an option anymore.
We will see some make-dos now. Tord does have some nice discards available to him. Gets rid of a backup Zacian, which you only ever really need 1 in play at all times. Has drawn into Excadrill, hasn't decided to use any of those Super Rods, so there's not going to be any Wheezing plays coming in this turn. So he probably won't be attacking Tobias's hand. He's just going to go deeper into the deck again and make sure he has access to everything he wants the following turn.
Yeah, it's a lot going on, right? Tord's got a giant hand. It really is just how how much he can do. I mean, he doesn't have the wheezing that he had last turn. Now he's actually going for the attacking Excadrill. 180 damage if you've got 3 or fewer cards left in your deck. It is a card with which I am very, very familiar. It is my very favorite card in the game right now, to be honest with you. So... oh, and it looks like he's actually going to use it to take out Oranguru, which I love. We've been talking for the past couple turns about how good a shift Oranguru's been putting in, and Excadrill's just like, yeah, we're done with that, mate.
Yeah, there's no other way around this. It does mean that Tobias still has always the Intrepid Sword that can get him out of sort of handlock situations, but now Tord has got to the point where he will be able to cycle back into the cards that he puts in with the... sort of defensive Excadrills, if that makes sense. An interesting line. So you can never run Tord out of cards, can you, in this way? No, because he can reset with Lily's Pokédoll if Tobias chooses not to attack, and he will slowly build up to an Excadrill. So Tord is still not able to be decked out. We are going to see an energy switch from Tobias onto the active. So Tobias will be going down to 2 prizes here. And yeah, now it's over to Tord to do a million actions and figure out what he wants to do with them. This turn will certainly be resetting those Weezings. Oh no, he doesn't even need to use Weezings anymore.
Doesn't need the Weezings anymore.
Important. So he can just establish his next Drillbur. That's going to be the only thing he needs to do this turn, as well as, of course, Handlock.
And I love what Tord's done here. Like I said, giving up prizes in this matchup, as long as you do it properly and you know what's going on, it is not that bad giving up a couple of prizes. Because now, essentially, Tord can use Reset Stamp and Jesse and James to just remove Tobias's entire hand. Then start using Chip Ice Axe, knowing that the Oranguru is no longer on the field, and essentially what Tord has done is made it easier to handlock Tobias while taking out that Oranguru. So frankly, that Excadrill, as much as I hate seeing it go down, absolutely did what it needed to do there. And as a nice little bonus, he actually used the first attack on the Excadrill that discarded the top 4 cards of his deck, which, like you said, put him into a position where he could guarantee drawing into what he wanted.
We are going to see Tord opting to put down his Lucario and Melmetal Tag Team GX. It's a usable card here. You can strip all of your opponent's energies off with 2 energy attachments, which is incredible. We also see him begin to disrupt the opponent's hand. There's the Reset Stamp coming in. He does have that Jesse James, of course. I think we're going to be seeing a discard, possibly of some excess energy here. It could also be the Silvally. Basically, the cards he can recover with Super Rod would be the targets you'd have to think here.
Yeah.
With the Jesse James. Definitely taking a moment. Not using Surge, so only using this one supporter this turn.
And another switch just hit the discard pile.
That's a really big deal, because he's basically just trying to use Lucario Melmetal to trap the active and just leave them with no switches remaining.
Oh, what's he going to give us? I mean, I'm assuming he's not going to give in the boss's orders.
That's the big no-no. Chaotic Swell is fine.
That would not be good. I mean, Chaotic Swell can be awkward against Wondrous Labyrinth, Prison Star, etc., but I think very much the lesser of 3 evils there. So I love that. We get the Jirachi off the board, Lily's Pokédoll goes active, and Tobias is basically going to have a 1-card hand that we know is Chaotic Swell. And Tord actually puts down a type null there, potentially having a Silvally GX to draw even more cards in the future, just in case Cinccino isn't enough.
Yeah, so the whole reason you have the type null for the late game is that Cinccino keeps forcing you to discard things, whereas the Silvally is just a free draw 5. So you instantly get access to those 4 cards that you deal with Excadrill. So next turn, his plan is... the Pokédoll either gets knocked out or he resets it to the bottom. He brings up the Lucario Melmetal, he attaches to it, he GXs off this ADP, he chips again, he establishes a Drillbur, and then he also can establish the Silvally. He'll have played a lot of cards at that point and might get some free draws from then on, because he's still not at the very end of his deck, because he can use Palpad and Ordinary Rod here.
Yeah, this is going extremely well. It's exactly what he wants. There goes the Drillbur. Silvally's about to get evolved into or hold it till next turn. It really doesn't matter. Palpad is going to put back whatever supporters he wants, bearing in mind that the combination of Cinccino and Silvally will allow him to draw them if he so wishes. He's still got that Super Rod he can use to guarantee he doesn't deck out this turn. That would be a very sad thing.
So yeah, the bird keeper is the important thing. It means next turn he can attach to the Excadrill and then bird keep out of Lucario Melmetal. It means that he can put in as many targets as he wants here as well and still draw a lot of cards this turn and know that he's not towards the bottom. So that's pretty nice. He is going to reestablish those energy cards so he can hit one for next turn for his Excadrill. He is going to make do, get rid of a Jirachi. No longer needed, did its job, got a few cards for him in those early stages. You play so much draw just for the early game to get to exactly this moment right now. He is going to remove the Celtic Swell with Gala Mine, which is a useful thing to do. Obviously, he has infinite Gala Mines eventually with Excadrill. He can force his opponent to draw an ADP, which is not a scary card at all. And yeah, he can just fire off the GX attack here.
And this is Tord getting into full lock territory at this stage, because that ADP was the easy attacker. It was the attacker that can attack turn after turn after turn. That Zacian's got enough energy on to attack, but with the hand lock fully in place, there is absolutely no way that Tobias is going to be able to just Brave Blade over and over. Now, it doesn't need to, of course, just needs one attack for the win. But there we see Intrepid Sword and basically going, I need a switching card and a boss's orders. If he doesn't have both of them in the same turn, he cannot win this game.
So Tord also reestablished the Jesse James this turn, so he can go ahead and lock out his opponent's hand with the Wheezing combo, I believe. So we are going to see the Chip Ice Axe proactively, knowing now that he can Silv Ally for the 3 cards for free. And he can access his entire deck. He has that Bird Keeper as well, of course. So he will go to 0 cards in total. But at the same time, he knows his opponent is now drawing a useless card. And yeah, the Excadrill is up and running. And he's just going to be looping 4 cards each turn, trying to continuously remove cards from his opponent's deck. And yeah, he seems to be in the lock pretty sweetly.
And when you get a lot like this established, and it's a pretty silly thing to say, but essentially all you're really hoping for as the other player is that your opponent makes a mistake. You're not thinking, oh, maybe my opponent doesn't have what they need. No, they are going to have what they need. Every single turn, Excadrill is going to put 4 cards back into the deck, and every single turn, Silv Ally is going to draw those 4 cards that you put back into the deck the previous turn. Tord is going to have access to exactly what he wants every single turn, and the only way Tobias gets out of this is if Tord makes a misplay. Tobias needs a switching card and a gusting card in order to finish out the game. Otherwise, Tord, without making a mistake, cannot deck out. So essentially, Tobias has to hope that it all goes wrong, but we know that Tord is going to Jesse and James every turn.
Yeah, and the only thing is that Jesse and James is painful, right? So every turn he needs to reset stamp Jesse James and Chip. But he also needs a discardable card for the Jesse James every single time. So I'm not entirely sure that he can maintain the lock completely every single turn. So he needs a turn off, basically. We are going to see a second Chip get played here, which means it's going to be just a Jesse James. So can you Jesse James just for 1 card if it's available? This is an interaction. Yeah, you can. Okay, interesting. So he has the perfect lock then. Every turn he gets a Chip, a Jesse James, a reset stamp. Well, every turn it will be 2 Chips just to give him that leeway. If 1 Chip gives Tobias 3 win condition cards. So that's how Tord's going to go for it.
Yeah, I love this. Like I say, Tobias is only ever going to have 1 card per turn, and he needs 2 cards. So unless Tord is forced to give a supporter card or something like that, but it's just not happening. We're going to see Tobias keep Intrepid Swording, hoping that something happens here. But like you've said, we know exactly what's going to happen. Silv Ally is going to draw the rest of these cards. Tord is going to reset stamp down to 2, play Chip Ice Axe, play Jesse and James. Tobias is going to have a 0-card hand. And, ooh.
Saucer.
Now that's
Saucer's safe. That's fine. We're allowed Saucer. Can't do anything with that. There's another switch gone. There's eventually a time when, because it's open deck list, you know your opponent is out of outs, and then you can just go even more aggressive with just deck destruction, basically with the stamp Jesse James play. But eventually you don't even need the Chips anymore, because you know that your opponent has no more outs.
Yeah, and you know Tord is the kind of player who's going to absolutely... And you said you could do nothing with Metal Saucer.
I mean, it doesn't change anything.
Nothing useful, at least. So we get another energy off Intrepid Sword, for what that's worth. So Zacian is not hurting for energy at this stage. But unfortunately, the fact that Jesse and James can do its thing when you don't have to discard if you don't have the cards to discard, that is huge. So, it's another metal saucer.
More saucers, yeah. And you're getting rid of a Dedenne GX, which is something that you want to remove. Of course, that's a scary card. Essentially, you're just hoping that the bottom few cards aren't all scary cards. You need to make sure that you're getting rid of the scaries as you go with the Jesse James reset stamp.
Indeed, and I did say that you were basically hoping for Tor to make a mistake. That's not strictly true. There is a weird scenario where you essentially have to top deck a good card, and that good card gets you a switch boss combination or something, or even just a switch, to be honest, at this stage. There is a chance, but it is a very slim chance. So he just needs to make...
Yeah. I think we've got rid of too many switches at this point. I think that they may all be gone. Tord hasn't even looked at his opponent's discard pile for a long time. He's basically just clicking the same button every single turn at this stage. The same combination of buttons that he's clicking every single time. He's going to re-establish a chip, and it's going to still be the big charm that's put to the top, just because he can. And he can Jesse James and Rototiller.
And then we're going to see... I'm willing to bet double Chip Ice Axe, Recess Stamp, Jesse and James.
Seems like a good choice. It's been doing well for him so far. 8 cards remaining in Tobias's deck. Now 7 with the draw for turn. It's a big charm, no spoilers.
And I mean, if you're Tobias, at what point do you just say, you know what, this game isn't working? I've tried my best. I mean, Tobias must think he's gotten out. Because at this stage, you know, you want to play games sometimes. You want to carry them on for information. So you can see cards in your opponent's deck if it's not open deck list, or you can just see the way that the deck works. Maybe Tobias had some questions about Tord's deck. But we are in the very definition of a loop here. Tord is doing the same thing every single turn, so there's no new information to be gleaned here. Tobias has learned everything he's going to learn. So, is he carrying on? Oh, there was one more switch left in his deck.
Yeah.
And there we see. That's what Tobias was holding on for. He was thought, there is a chance I end up with my switch in some weird way. As soon as that switch hits a discard, you thought Tobias conceded the game because that was it. That was his final. It wasn't a great chance, but there was at least a chance.
Yeah, the win condition was exactly chip into Crobat Dedenne switch. That was the only way he wins, right? It has to be exactly that chip. Tord had 2 chips to try and do it. So that was the only slither of a win condition. Those are the cards remaining for Tobias, which made him, rightfully stay in the game because that combination of deck can happen, But as soon as that final switch out was removed by Tord, he knows exactly what's going on, and he's got to scoop it up.
Absolutely. And like we say, these players are good players, are high-level players. We knew there must have been an out left in the deck for the game to still be going. But what we saw, we saw Tord's deck, right? We saw it work perfectly. That is exactly what Tord's deck is trying to do. So let's head on over into game 2 and see if Tord's deck is going to do that again. Because honestly, what we're going to see here is probably going to be rather similar to the previous game. We know Tord's game plan. We know exactly what he's trying to do. He did it perfectly last game. And we know that Tobias can win. He was a switch away from winning the previous game. Is he still going to go for the Oranguru? Almost certainly, because you know what? It still forces Tord to give up 2 prizes, and that could be the difference.
Yeah, he absolutely has to try and use that Oranguru. And, there may be games if you go aggressive and Tord hasn't been able to keep you in check, where Tord is not able to even have that turn to attack and knock out the Oranguru. So you really have to hope that that's going to be the case if you are on Tobias' side. Now, he has led a Zacian, so he, at the very least, has to put 2 Pokemon into play, I would say. So he can't just try and go lone attacker, especially Zacian that takes turns off with Brave Blade. That's not going to be getting him anywhere. So we are going to see the Energy Spinner to kick things off. Tobias can look through his deck. Certainly wants to check some outs, Boss's Orders, Air Balloons, and obviously switches are some of the biggest things for him. And he's just going to go ahead and grab 1 Metal Energy. So he could just be swinging that onto the active and using Intrepid Sword here. Could also be used just for some discard fodder for Metal Saucer, potentially. And we are indeed going to see a Quick Ball removing 1 metal. ADP comes into play. And you got to imagine the energy drop onto it as well. We are going to see the Water Energy attachment. And could end on Intrepid Sword. Seems decent.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of an ADP deck, this is a great turn one. You've got the water energy onto your ADP, you've gotten your Intrepid Sword, and then next turn you need a switch and an energy card and you're ready to go. Of course, now every switch Tobias plays is going to feel just that little bit painful because he knows how important they're going to be. I mean, imagine getting to the late game and knowing you've got 7 or 8 outs in your deck rather than the 3 he had last time, making it so much more difficult for your opponent, for Tord to, lock in with that Chip Ice Axe. So would rather have started ADP, got the Zacian. There is a good chance of a turn 2 GX attack, but it really is, can Tobias flip the script from the previous game? Because we saw all of this last game. We saw the 2 Pokemon, we saw the early GX attack, we saw the energy attachments, and in the end, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, and Tor's again got a really decent start. He's got 1 capture energy. He's also got communication, so he can go ahead and grab a Minchino as well as this Zacian for the early turns. So he's going to start drawing. He could even go for an early game, whatchamacallit, it's the old Jirachi as well for Stellar Wishes if he really wants to. He could just save this communication for a turn 2 Chinchino as well, knowing that, again, Tobias' game plan probably doesn't involve a knockout.
No, it's going to be GX attack next turn. When it's this difficult for Tobias to take KOs, or especially KOs that give up prizes, you really do need to have, 3 KOs is a victory rather than 6. So I think we're going to see a fairly slow turn from Tobias. It's probably going to be like we saw last time. It's going to be an energy attachment, hopefully a switch, and maybe there's some Metal Saucer or something he can use on the Zacian when it hits the bench. And yeah, energy, switch, and just altered creation.
Yeah. One of the 4 switches down. That's what Tord's thinking, at least. He didn't even have to get rid of it himself. No air balloon for Tobias was the only awkward thing there. But Tord does have, again, another capture energy for another Minchino or a Jirachi if he would like. He is able to communication into his first Minchino, so he's going to get drawing here. No supporters in his hand, surprisingly, as of yet. So nothing like Birdkeeper. That's some of his best early game draws. Sonya as well, a decent early game option for him. We only see the first make do here.
And it does draw a supporter. It is a Team Yell Grunt, and actually, that's a really nice supporter. It will get one of the energy off of ADP into Tobias's hand, which basically means one more, unless we see, say, a Metal Saucer energy switch combination, it is going to mean one more turn before we start seeing Ultimate Ray, which is 1 less KO, 1 fewer KO, and that's going to be that could be a really big difference.
We are seeing the energy drop of capture onto the type null here. It does open up Jirachi for him. So Tord may be eyeing up a Stellar Wish play instead, just for more of a draw supporter. But the Team Yell Grunt seems pretty timely, to be honest with you. I don't mind just going for the Stellar Wish anyway, protect that Chinchino. And grabbing things like Lieutenant Surge is often a big deal. Boss's Orders as well could be reasonable. Establishing that reset stamp for whenever you need it. These are all pieces that he needs and will eventually draw into, so all of them good options.
Yeah, it does go for that reset stamp. And we do see the Team Yell Grunt. And the theory here is very simple. Let's make it one more turn before Tobias can start taking prizes. Bearing in mind, we know at this stage that as soon as Tord gets a lot going, it's going to take an awful lot for Tobias to win the game. So in the early game, it really is all on Tobias to actually start trying to make something happen, because if he can't make it work, it's probably not going to work. Now, we do see Metal Saucer. Do we have an energy switch to take an early KO? This would be huge. Oh, it's an energy spinner.
It's one of those things where, yeah, sometimes they can do these digs, but there are just cards you can't discard in this specific matchup. Normally you see players go digging, go fishing for these outs to have a turn quicker, but when you just have a hand size that you just don't want to discard an excess switch or an excess air balloon, you just can't make those plays. So instead, Tobias forced to re-establish that energy drop and just pass it back over with the Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, that was a nice play from Tord. Really did set him back a turn. And now he's just that much closer. He's got Lieutenant Surge. He's got Reset Stamp, and Jesse James doesn't have a second Wheezing yet, unfortunately. Does have a Pokemon Communication, mind you. So and there's Chip Ice Axe, so we could see a complete handlock this turn if that's what Tord wants, which you've got to think it may well be. No, looking to establish a board a little bit more first.
Yeah, but the Surge isn't live just yet. Yeah, we're missing a Jesse James for the full 6, right? That's what we're missing, because we need Surge to be live, and then you need the second Jesse James to do the full 6.
Oh, so, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Joe. So we need a prize given up first, but that's not a problem.
Yeah, it's part of the plan. He's going to get another Minccino developed. Tons of draw available to him. He has board locked himself, but he does have that one copy of Scoop Up Net in his deck that can, become a space if he needs to. And let's be honest, Tobias is always likely to take some for him. So that's going to open up the board space for Tord anyway. Tobias has that KO guaranteed. He's also going to play a Cherish Ball here. He's going to grab himself a Mawile. Looks like he's just thinning these cards because he doesn't want to draw into them, expecting Tord already to have the potential to go for some lock plays.
And we do see a boss's orders on the Drillbur here. Now, I think we saw this exact same thing game one, taking out that Drillbur before it can be too annoying. And we do see a Dedenne being played here, so a big change up from the first game, actually playing that Dedenne. Having said that, Tobias knows that Tord doesn't play any Tool Scrapper, so if he can get an Air Balloon onto that Dedenne, it's actually not a bad thing to have it in play.
Yeah, and he's also going to establish that Oranguru as well, more protection against Tord's handlock approach. So we'll be taking some initial prizes. It's interesting to see the boss's orders come in on a draw card. Typically, I actually think deal with the draw is actually your best way to win the game, more often than not. But targeting the Drillbur here means that Tord can't go for boss's orders plays on Tobias's Oranguru. So that could be the higher thing. That's mainly the thing that he might be targeting here.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to think Tobias. I mean, we saw what happened last game, both in the initial Excadrill that took out the Oranguru and the subsequent Excadrill that got the lock going. I mean, as it stands at the moment, until Tord hits Scoop Up Net, he's not going to be able to bench more than one Drillbur. So, I mean, this is the point in the game where Tobias can shine. This is the point where Tobias can start picking off these Pokemon and potentially rushing to a victory. But we did see an early boss's orders onto a Drillbur in game one, and that did not affect the outcome when it came down to it.
Tord definitely having a little think here, having a pause, seeing what's in his reach. He's going to go into a type null here. Does just have a 1 retreat cost, so he wants to see more cards before making any other decisions. He basically never needs energies to attack with outside of the Excadrill. He does draw into a Pokédoll, which is certainly something he wants to see here, because Tobias can go down to a 4-card hand with the Stamp Jesse James play. He hasn't drawn into another Weezing, but he does have the Surge double Jesse James, which is a little painful, but is an option for him. And he could be going for... He would obviously hold the Chips. He doesn't need those yet because Oranguru is in play anyway. But paying retreat into Lily's Pokédoll isn't a bad deal. Even when Oranguru can get you out of this sort of hand lock, there's already been 2 boss's orders played. So you still have really high odds of buying a turn back with a Pokédoll here.
Absolutely. Of course, that Silvally could be an attacker. It could potentially take out that Oranguru later in the game if things went the right way. So maybe that is a reason not to just retreat and pay the energy, keep the energy on, have it as a potential attacker, because like you say, that Oranguru is going to be so important for Tobias. Tord just wants an option to get rid of it. He doesn't really care what it is. And I know Silvally is a 2-prize Pokemon, but as long as only one 2-prize Pokemon goes down, it doesn't really make any difference.
Tord is actually going to forego any hand disruption here. He's just going to Sonia for a couple of cards. It's the best draw support he had available. He could reattach an energy to that type null. Like you said, eyeing it up as an attacking threat for the Oranguru, unbeknownst to Tobias, I would say. But he's really hoping that there's no boss's orders coming down from Tobias. This is a vulnerable spot for Tord.
Absolutely. And these are the turns Tobias is living for in this game. This is it. These are the turns where Tobias has to make something work. If he's going to win the game, it is going to be these kind of turns where he's like, wait, Tord didn't play any hand disruption? I can just do what I want to do with the cards in my hand? That's new and novel. And... oh, he's got the Primate Wisdom. He's got to get a boss's orders this turn. It's too important.
Yeah, and seeing Tord re-establish an energy to the type null has to be a red flag. You have to know that that's going to be something that he's certainly valuing, not just as a payment of retreat option.
There he goes.
He does have boss's orders and goes exactly for that type null. This is a huge play for Tobias.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's perfect. This is what Tobias needed. This was going to be the thing that kind of worked in this game. We see an energy switch onto Dedenne, energy onto Oranguru, but I love this. What we've got is a KO It's on to the type null, and now Tobias is down to essentially 1 KO to win the game. Tord does not have any real option for taking out that Oranguru, which means that the hand lock, like you've said, is going to be so much more difficult to actually establish. Tobias has a pretty good chance of pulling out this game. I mean, this is Tobias's route to victory. Game 1, we saw Tord's deck doing perfectly what it wants to do. We are seeing Tobias's route to victory here, and he's got a very good chance in this game. Still a lot to do, but there is a chance.
Yeah, really, the window can get shut again by Tord, but there's going to be these few random turns where he just can't completely control the gameplay because Oranguru will get Tobias out of chip control. So Tord would just probably forego the chip altogether and just say, hopefully, the 1 or 2 cards you have access to aren't exactly boss's orders, because 3 have been played. So Tord is only losing to 4th boss or Eldegoss, I think. So if you get a couple turns just to slip behind dolls, that's how you claw back into this game. But he needs attachments. He needs more Pokemon in play. He does have access to communication if he wants to re-establish a Drillbur here. We are going to see the Reset Stamp and the Jesse James as well, most likely coming in, of course, to at least remove Tobias's hand cards. But yeah, he just needs time.
I mean, even with the Oranguru down, you're essentially, they have access to 1 random card. And that's it. That's their entire game. They've got 1 card that they know is not going to be good, and then the Oranguru will get them a 2nd random card. I mean, for Tobias, that is still a whole lot of a higher win rate potential than he had in game 1. But let's be clear, it's not like Tobias has got Tord right where he wants him. We're talking about 1 random card in the deck. Fingers crossed it is the right card.
And Tord actually had a really awkward chip there. Saucer is making the Wondrous Labyrinth play difficult for him. And the Swell obviously turns off Wondrous Labyrinth. And the Cherish Ball obviously gets Tobias into Dead Change. And he actually hit the final boss's orders. So now he's only losing to Eldegoss off the top, I think. Obviously, he's going to draw a Saucer, but he could Prime it Wisdom that to change it up. But I think Tord might have to spend his Wonder Labyrinth Prism Start here to try and buy some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like you say, you then need an energy and you need, something else as well. It's very, very difficult. You need the Eldegoss and the energy, but you're only going to have 1 card. So maybe you get the Dedenne into Eldegoss and energy. That's always an option, or a supporter card into... Oh, no, that support card wouldn't allow you to use the Eldegoss yet, would it? So it really is going to be kind of Dedenne into the pair of them. So yeah, Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star is the really nice option here. Means that all non-fairy Pokemon, which is everyone, has to pay 1 extra energy to attack. And towards single energy attackers are much less worried than Tobias's free energy attackers.
My worry is towards prize cards. I think the Wonder Labyrinth might actually hurt him quite a lot. I don't know how many basic fighting he has. I think when I looked through his prizes on turn 1, he has 1 fighting energy prize. Okay, so he has 1 more capture. So he can try and GX with Lucario Melmetal for the 3 energy attack cost if he wants to, but he may be holding these energies to eventually make a Drillbur. He chose to Jesse James away an Excadrill and a Communication, so didn't want an energy drop last turn, or said that the rest of his hand was more valuable. So I'm interested to see what the next Pokemon he establishes on this board is going to be.
He is, and then we saw Tobias have a very good draw that actually managed to get a Professor's Research, getting him a new hand of 7, did hit the Metal Saucer, so now that Zacian does have enough energy, and then the drop onto ADP, so both of them actually do have enough energy to attack now, and Tobias is back in that, yay, now I just need Eldegoss for the win. Of course, we can see Tord's got the Reset Stamp and the Jesse James, so Tord can get the hand lock going again, but the gigantic difference from game 1 is that Oranguru sitting on the bench being like, hey.
Man, Tobias has done so well. I mean, he drew his last boss, and then he was able to Wisdom into his last Research. That is what you want to see if you're going to pull out this game. That is so much pressure on Tord. Yeah, I mean, Tord needs to do so much this turn. He's almost at the bottom of his deck. That's the good news. He's going to start throwing away some more Pokemon. He does have that backup Stadium removal, so he can try and power up Lucario Melmetal over 2 turns, then replace the Stadium for himself to then just GX attack a bunch of energies off. But what's his pathing here? He's still a few turns away from any of those options. He can quite easily make do some cards as well. He can get rid of the other backup Minccino. He does need to re-establish his Silvally as well. We saw how integral that was for the late game. So that might be the Pokemon that he's going to commit to on his board here before using his final make do. He's really in a tough spot, yeah.
Well, he wants an Excadrill, and he wants a Silvally, and he potentially wants a Lucario and Melmetal, but there's only 2 bench spaces to actually work with at the moment. So, like you say, Tord needs an awful lot, and we're not seeing that same confident lock we saw in Game 1. In Game 1, Tord really did. Like, even when he was giving up prizes, you were just like, yeah, this is fine. Yeah, I know that Excadrill's going down, but you know what? This actually helps, because it's easier to lock, and the Oranguru goes down. That's not what we're seeing this game.
So it might be a Stamp, Surge, Jesse James, Boss's Orders play, or it could be a... Yeah, I'm really not sure. Birdkeeper into the Pokédoll could be the line. Okay, so we're seeing the Scoop Up net, so no Birdkeep this turn. The energy is going to go on to Lucario Melmetal. It can be a catcher, so we can re-establish a type null if he wants it to. But there's no Drillburs in here.
No.
He has the other rod, so that's fine.
Well, he must have
to be the type null. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is awkward. I mean, get him in later. The Excadrill isn't necessarily needed this turn. Like you say, I mean, he's probably going to want to try and use that GX attack on Lucario Melmetal before he starts using the Excadrill to actually get all of his cards back. And that really just goes to show how far away Tord is. Now, we say Tord's far away. Remember, Tobias is essentially seeing 1 guaranteed and 1 random card per hand, and the guaranteed is not going to be a good card. So what that basically means is, you know, as much as Tord is going to take a few turns to get rolling here, let's not pretend like Tobias has got some super easy route and, oh, he's definitely going to do it in a couple of turns. It is going to take a fair bit of good fortune. Now, he's got quite a small deck at this stage, which obviously will increase the chances of hitting the Eldegoss or a way to find it. Although we did see a quick ball go down from Jesse and James there. That would have been a game-winning card.
Yeah, and the switch, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not see the switch go. That's a big card.
Yeah, so Tord's trying to buy the turn that he tried to buy last turn. It's a random top deck. It's a random wisdom. At least the researchers are all gone now, so there's not going to be a crazy growth. Oh, just kidding. Wow, Tobias has done insane from these wisdoms. A truly big brain Oranguru coming in here.
And there's a quick ball that he needs. That quick ball is, and yeah, there is the Eldegoss. Eldegoss is going to get the boss's orders. Boss's orders is going to get, I don't know, Cinccino, type null. It really doesn't matter. Whichever of those gets selected, it is a Cinccino, but it is going to go down to the Ultimate Ray. And Tobias is actually going to even this game up at 1 game apiece. And that is exactly what he needed. Yeah, the boss got discarded. Yeah, the quick ball got discarded. But when you can Oranguru into a Cherish Ball for a Dedenne for a quick ball for an Eldegoss for a boss's orders for the win, what does it even matter?
Yeah, I feel bad for Tord there, realistically. Wisdom into last boss, wisdom into research, wisdom into, or last research, and wisdom into one of the final Cherish Balls. That's as bad as it gets for Tord. That is, trying to have 1 turn of breathing room to re-establish that lock was all he needed, really. And he had kept some really integral stuff in his hand for a turn that he had bought, but that turn never came. It's just draw into draw into draw. Really incredible stuff. Tobias was able to discard a lot of the sort of chaff from his hand with that early aggressive Dedenne, where he was just fortunate enough to just not have anything important with a big Dedenne change, get aggressively going with that ADP. And yeah, the clock is shortened massively by that Alter Creation GX attack. So Tord doesn't have the same amount of time that he is used to. He always has to be playing around Intrepid Sword as the fallback plan as well. So it's the hardest matchup for Tord in so many different ways, but never any more difficult than it will just be now.
No, and that's the thing, right? Tobias played beautifully. It was a very well played game. He played to his outs. Yeah, fine, he got a bit lucky on some of the Oranguru plays, but that doesn't matter. He set them up. He played well. He controlled his hand. He controlled his deck. He did what he needed to do to raise a chance of hitting that. Tord played really well as well, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, there is no way Tord is going to be able to protect against those kind of draws off the Oranguru. it's frankly not realistic, I think is probably fair to say.
Yeah, we're going to have to jump into this final game and see if Tord is going to get there this time, or if Oranguru is going to be that menace as it was in that second game. Seriously, shout out to Oranguru for what an incredible performance that one card put in for that game too.
Absolutely. So let's head on over to game 3 then, see what is going to be happening, see if Tobias can keep using Oranguru to that level, or whether Tord can get on the lock. And I mean, I love games like this, Joe, I really do. Because we're in game 3, and in game 1, we saw Tord's deck do what Tord's deck does. And in game 2, we saw Tobias's deck do what it needed to do in order to beat Tord. We're essentially going into game 3 having seen both the players go, here is a perfect example of how I win this game. So we're fully informed, everybody watching knows exactly what both the players are aiming for, and we can all head into game 3 knowing everything we need to know.
Oh, and Tord gets the free mulligan card of a Zacian V, so his turn just got way better. He can end on Intrepid Sword, also able to pick up a Pokemon Communication here. Already has a Minccino down, so yeah, really, really solid start for him. He could aggressively communicate the Excadrill into the deck just for more Minccino if he wants to. I think that's pretty solid, just because you want to draw as quickly as possible. You're motoring through to the bottom, that's always your motive, and it also means he can gain that information straight away by looking through his deck. We've seen him do this every single time we've featured him. He absolutely has to. He has some important one-of cards that he has to keep track of, and even, you know, some 2 or 3-ofs that he has. He needs to know if he has access to 2 or 3 of them, because that basically means how many turns he can go without using Excadrill to reload.
Yeah, and Tord's deck, like we said at the beginning of this match, it's a very awkward deck. There are lots of one-offs, lots of weird cards, lots of tricks, and you need to be a very high-level player in order to pilot a deck like this. Simple things like digging for a Jesse and James when the last one is prized, that loses you the game. Little mistakes in a deck like this will lead to you losing a game, and in a game 3, that will obviously, you know, lose the match, and we are in loser's bracket here. Loser of this match is eliminated from the tournament altogether. So it needs to be, these are my prizes, this is what I've got. Very, very, very deliberate play. Does have double Cinccino to evolve next turn though, which not a bad way to start.
And Tobias leads out with Mawile GX, does have himself a quick ball, can throw away a Metal Energy. He's done this play a few times over now in these last few games. So looking to establish ADP as always, and get those early game energy drops. We know he has probably at least one more in his hand, because you wouldn't be throwing one away otherwise, or his hand is completely unplayable and he's forced to Dead Change early. But yeah, we'll see where this gets him. Tobias also going to look through his deck. Important to check out the outs for himself. How many switches, how many air balloons, how many boss's orders. These are the things you've got to keep an eye on.
And you got to wonder whether Tobias is going to be a little more gung-ho in terms of bench Pokemon. I mean, the game where he kept 2 Pokemon out and kept it really tight, he ended up losing. The game where he finished the game with a full bench is a game he ended up winning. I mean, he didn't really want to start Mawile and use turn 1 Dedenne, but at the end of the day, if he can get his energy out and his air balloon and switches, and I know that's a lot of ifs, there is still a way to protect against this. The most important thing is, did get the water energy onto that ADP, so still threatening that turn 2 Altered Creation GX.
Yeah, you need to give Tord the least amount of time possible, because every turn Tord gets, he's getting 9 cards before supporter at this point. So you need to make it as quick as possible. Unfortunately, the Dead Change only got rid of 1 boss's orders, so on the balance of things, you probably take that. You say that that's not the worst of all the discards it could have been. We actually see Tord go for the Stellar Wish before starting to make do with his Cinccino. Picks out a Pokemon Communication. I think he's just looking for discard fodder at this point, because his hand is full of good things, to be honest. Possibly a Drillbur could be discarded. Yeah.
Yeah, Drillbur could go. I mean, I think it's fairly likely, and that's the thing. Could Tord potentially put 2 Drillbur down this game? He doesn't want 2 Drillbur out. We've seen how tight Tord's bench is. He does not have bench space to spare, but in both games, Tord has benched 1 Drillbur, and it's been Boston KO'd when it could have been really useful later in the game. I mean, is there an argument for Tord to try, and it's obviously not right at this moment, but is there an argument to try and establish both Drillbur, or is that just too punishing to his own bench space?
I think you're right. I think the Oranguru proved his weight in gold, really, in that previous game. You got to deal with it when you got to deal with it. Tord actually going for the wheezing early on with his Pokemon communication, really valuing just having the lock established in hand whenever he wants to unleash it, knowing that Tobias has no hand disruption whatsoever, allows Tord to make these sorts of lines much more comfortably, knowing that he can just let it sit there. He's also got that capture energy now from his second Make Do, so he can just get that Drillbur out for free anyway. So this is one of the more difficult Pokemon that he can find in his deck. The captures can access basically every other card he wants to at this point. So just going to go ahead, grab that Weezing. Probably going to see the capture energy developed onto possibly the active Pokemon. Could also be a Minccino, just allowing the Jirachi to sit there for turn after turn. Gives yourself a pivot for future turns, basically. And could be Type Nought as well. We have seen he does like to weave that in quickly. At the same time, it can be an attacking option. Drillbur also obviously very reasonable.
Yeah, gotta like that little Drillbur. I love that little guy. Getting one capture energy is quite nice. And that's the other thing. Maybe you don't double Drillbur. Maybe you just have it down early enough that gives you the option. Oh, yeah. This is a bit earlier than I was expecting.
How about 0 cards? I was thinking the Weezing was just getting established. Yep, let's go to 0. Tobias, no Oranguru in sight. Wow, hits a switch as well. Hits Cherish Ball, hits all sorts. This is how Tord gets a lot of free time. Unless Tobias again is able to rip a huge draw here, this could be huge for Tord.
This could really be huge. I mean, there isn't even a GX attack going. And there's the energy, but there's no switch, so there's no GX attack. I love this. And this is not what we saw from Tord in the first 2 games. The first 2 games, like you say, and what you were saying was absolutely fair given what we've seen. Establish your hand, get ready for when we want to drop the hand lock. And in this game, Tord went, well, I was ready last game and it didn't work that well, so let's just drop it pre-GX attack. And unless Tobias is able to draw into something very quickly, this could be rough. And now Tobias has got a 0-card hand. I mean, is there a Chip Ice Axe Tord has access to right now? Because I'm sure he's got some more draw.
Yeah, he can draw. He's using the Sonia to, again, draw more. He can do his 2 make... Oh, he does have one in hand already. He still has 1 more Make Do and Stellar Wish, so he's going to continue to go deep. Any turn this deck buys time, you just get closer to the bottom, and that's where this deck gets super dangerous. We do see a Stellar Wish here as well. He can go ahead and grab a Wonder Labyrinth. Yeah. It's a lot more that Tobias has to find off the top now. And, I mean, Tord could have used the Chip Ice Axe first to then inform his decision here. But regardless, he is just going to go for the Wondrous Labyrinth instead. Now we're going to see the Chip, and he can quite happily put the Tool Scrapper on top, that's for sure. That's not what you're afraid of.
That'll do nicely. And this is fantastic, because now, I mean, if the Wondrous Labyrinth goes into play, all of a sudden Tobias needs an energy and a switching card just to use the GX attack, just to get rolling. There's no Zacian on the bench, so... You know, it really is at the stage where Tobias needs a supporter, a Dedenne, a Crobat, a Quick Ball, a Cherish Ball, something along those lines. 1 card is not going to do it at this stage. Tobias needs a bunch of cards, which means he's got to draw a supporter, and we see they're just a draw pass. The thing is, Tord's got knowledge here. Tord knows what Tobias's hand is. So if Tord Chip Ice Axe again here, he still has complete knowledge of Tobias's options.
Yeah, I think there's only 1 Chip Ice Axe remaining in the deck, so it is... Oh, wow, he's drawn into it before the Stellar Wish. I was thinking he had like a 33%, but he's just got it before, which is pretty chill. And it means he can begin using Rototill this turn as well, so he can reset Chips for the remainder of the game. So, wow, I mean, what an insane start for Tord. Just seeing a 4-card hand... Who hasn't sat on a 4-card hand and thought, yeah, I've got options for next turn, that's going to be all chill. But, wow, Tord with the early Jesse James Weezing combo. We are going to see the Chip Ice Axe get fired off this turn. All of these cards are horrific for you. It might force him to use a Wonder Labyrinth this turn. You force an energy card out of the opponent, and then they pay retreat, but there's the Wonder Labyrinth established. It means that he can't use Excadrill this turn, though, so actually 3 incredible cards for Tobias. It may mean that Tord uses Intrepid Sword instead here.
I still like denying the GX attack, buying yourself an extra turn. You're absolutely right. That was not what Tord wanted to see. Energy, or a way to get energy. Not ideal.
So, yeah, he's just going to establish that energy for Drill, but it means that next turn he can be using Excadrill. But it does mean that Tobias has a turn next turn off of Chip. So that's the good news for him.
And he
Is he a
might.
Bird Keeper for a few more cards? I think it's just for more cards again.
Oh, there's no energy in the discard. Well, you can attach a basic energy when you attack with Cinccino, so I was wondering whether there was a basic fighting in the discard and maybe you get it on Drillbur then, but no. Just Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, so we know that Tobias can retreat now if he wants to. That's a terrible decision because we know Tord can boss. He can just attach to the ADP. That's probably the strongest choice he can make here. Or the only choice he can make realistically. And yeah, pass it back over. But there are no more chips in Tord's deck. No way for him to recycle them. So now the top of that deck is random and Tobias can actually draw himself out at this point.
But that's such a weird thing. Like, we're getting all excited. Oh, he's actually got one random top deck. How many times have you been in a tournament and you're in top deck mode? You don't think, come on, random card. You think, I'm in top deck mode. This is terrible. Whereas now, Tobias is like, yeah, I'm in top deck mode. This is wonderful.
This is exactly where I want to be in this spot right now. Where my opponent has like a 15-card hand, is doing everything they want, starting to recycle chip every single turn. Yeah, but it's all you can hope for, really, at this stage. Tord is at the bottom of his deck. He can use Birdkeeper this turn. Oh, wow, he's got the access to scoop up net Jirachi and use Team Yellgrunt as well. So that random card just gets worse. So,
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yellgrunt's got to be the play here, because now you get rid of an energy from your opponent, and now they need energy or stadium and a switching card. So, yeah, that's awesome. So I do like this very much indeed. And, of course, there we see the second energy on the Excadrill, so that Rototiller is not going to be hindered by Wanderer's Labyrinth, which is very, very nice. And Tord has gone a bit more aggressive this game. He's really gone aggressive on the lock early doors, far more so than we saw in the first two games. But if you can catch your opponent on a 0-card hand with Chip Ice Axe before they've done anything, that ain't bad.
Yeah, and he can communicate here as well. He can get a backup Drillbur if he wants to. That's something that he got back with the Ordinary Rod, so he can go ahead and re-establish that, just in case there are any random high rolls from the top of this deck here. He still has his supporter to play. He's actually going to go for the Jesse James over the Team Yellgrunt, which is a surprise to me. He knows his opponent's hand is exactly Tool Scrapper, which you're not afraid of. I'm surprised we didn't see the Yellgrunt there, realistically.
I'm wondering if maybe he's worried about a quick ball, because a quick ball he would need something to discard in order to play it.
That's true.
So maybe this turns off a quick ball play?
Yeah, just hurting the outs, I guess, makes the most sense. So he can Rototiller now.
Yeah, and I like this, because now, I mean, I think it's fair to say we're going to see some Chip Ice Axe coming back into the deck.
Straight back in. He can go ahead and grab that Scoop Up Net as well to re-establish, and the Jesse James by the looks of things. He already has his backup Rod that can get all the other Pokemon, I think, in his hand, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, he needs this Ordinary Rod so that he can re-establish the Weezings by the looks of things. Oh, it is in his hand. Okay, he needs that anyway, though.
I mean, to be fair, like...
Yeah. He wants to Weezing every turn.
Oh, absolutely. And we're in a weird position. Oh, no! He actually hit the Dene!
He's done it again. Tobias, you madman.
How do you keep doing this?
The good news is this is pre-GX attack, right? So Tobias has to GX. He can still establish a fourth energy onto the ADP, but man, there's still a board space as well for Oranguru. We do see the Skylar. This could easily be just for an air balloon here for the active, and then we'll see the GX attack. So, yeah, what an insane draw. Once again, might I add.
Turns out top deck mode might be exactly where Tobias is most comfortable. Doesn't matter, I always draw the card I want.
Man, Tord's got to be keeping his head here because he's just lost a game to Tobias having incredible Primate Wisdom turns, and now we're seeing just out of nowhere, just random off the top. The one turn Tord had to reset Chips was enough for Tobias to claw back into a hand. Now, Tord can re-establish the lock next turn. That's not a problem. He reset Weezing. He has Ordinary Rod. He has access to his entire deck. But yeah, it's not something you want to see.
No. And again, Tord should have had this locked up. Like, the only way Tobias realistically gets back into the game is if that happens. Tord even used Jesse and James to turn off the possibility of a quick ball, for goodness sake. I mean, he did everything he was supposed to do, and he still got punished for it. And, you know, with a 6-card hand, that does make it more awkward for Tord to lock. I mean, with a 2-card hand, it's... well, you're just Jesse and James and you're good to go. 6-card hand, double Jesse and James, double Wheezing. I mean, it's absolutely doable, but I'm talking about after a reset stamp. Obviously, at the moment, it's a 4-card hand, so that is a little bit easier to deal with.
Looks like Tord is going for the Gala Mine to remove his own stadium here. He does have boss's orders plays that he can make.
He's going to get the Dene.
He's
going to KO the Dene.
He's going for KOs here. Really interesting stuff.
90 damage for free energy. He's got the free energy. That would do 180. That would be absolutely enough to KO the Dedenne. So we might see an actual slash coming down here. And to be fair, Tord is now ahead in the game. Tord's mill deck is winning the prize race against ADP.
Does he have a route here? So he has a route to win the game just by using boss over and over, right? He can next turn drill bazooka Dedenne, and then he'll have few enough cards in his deck to finish off the Mawile. So Tord is trying to just win by taking prizes here.
Yeah, I mean,
he's trying to win the race.
The other Excadrill, 2 attacks. The first attack does 120, that will KO a Dedenne, and the second attack, 180, will KO a Mawile. And we know that Tobias does not play any hand disruption. So as long as Tord has got a way to get Excadrill out the next 2 turns, you know, he needs Excadrill Energy Boss, and then he needs Drill and Drillbur, and then he needs Excadrill Energy Boss. But the thing is, with no hand disruption, Tord can guarantee he has those cards. So as long as Tord has mapped this correctly, and as long as he's got his sequencing right, he will win this game doing this.
That's incredible. I mean, he's done the old call the ambulance but not for me play. He's just turned this game completely on its head. We said, surprise, I take prizes too. And I mean, wow. He's also got he's got the free retreat on the type null effectively now with this energy attachment. He has access to his entire deck. He has Ordinary Rod, so he can reset a Drillbur and an Excadrill. So yeah, he has the double Ordinary Rod. So this turn he can grab Drillbur, and he has the Power Pad for boss's orders as well. So it looks like he's looking to take all the prizes here.
I mean, this is my comfort zone right now. If you're going to be using the Cosmic Eclipse Excadrill to start taking prizes, we are very much in my comfort zone. That is my most comfortable place in the entire Pokemon TCG. I qualified for the first 2 Players' Cups with this Excadrill, so I'm all in favour of this from Tord, but not just because I love the card. It's actually a really smart play, because in the last game, it looked like the lock was working, and then it all fell apart. Tord's sitting here going, look, I know the lock will probably work. I can probably lock this game, but I can definitely get free KOs. Excadrill is phenomenal at taking out these weak Pokemon on the bench to give up 2 prizes. Tobias has been... This wouldn't have worked game 1. But now that Tobias has benched enough of these, Tord's going, you know what? 6 prizes, let's do this. And unless he's miscalculated, it's going to work.
That's incredible as well. Imagine, we were saying how fortunate it was that Tobias drew that Dedenne GX, and obviously, in Tobias's shoes, you slam that down and start drawing your cards, but Tord actually found the way to make that advantageous for him. What an insane few turns here.
It's just ridiculous, and I love it. And we keep talking about Tord as probably the best player in the world, and partly that's because we've been lucky enough to watch him play a bunch of games. He's been on stream a bunch of times. And partly it's because you can look at the results, and when you see games like this, you just look at it and you're like, this is why Tord's so good. Because even if you are a master of this deck, how often do you just go, I'm pretty sure I've got the lock established, I've got a good win condition, oh wait, here is a better win condition.
Tord? So it's a strange one. He's only got 1 boss's orders left, so if he is going aggressive, it would be a 50-50 for him to have the second boss's orders for the game. So he's actually changing up the tone again. He's going, guess what, I am actually control. That's the twist. So he's keeping the aggressive line open, but this turn he's attacking the hand again. He may have me going into a Pokédoll this turn, by the looks of things, because the Lieutenant Surge is no longer live because he took the aggressive prize.
Yeah.
He can chip, of course. So, yeah, Tord manoeuvring. Tord saying, I'll take prizes when I want them. They're out there. I just need to get myself in the right position for them.
So basically, Tord's got 2 potential routes to victory here, and he's going to use whichever one he gosh darn well likes and will not be dictated to by the likes of us.
So he has to be a little bit careful because there is the Intrepid Sword backup for Tobias, where he can at least get his hand back. And I don't know if Tord is established for using a Stamp Jesse James Wheezing combo again. He does have the Ordinary Rod that can help him get there, but I believe he needs to get back his Rototiller Excadrill within these cards as well. So it is still a little bit awkward for him. This aggressive prize thing, we liked the sound of it, but now it's looking a little risky.
Absolutely. So, I mean, he has got a boss's orders there. So, I mean, is he just going to do it? I mean, he's now got the aggressive Excadrill, and he's got another Drillbur down. He's got Super Rod to potentially get the Excadrill back if it goes down. Well, I mean, when it goes down, it will definitely be KO'd. And then he's got boss's orders, and, I mean, he must have a way to get boss's orders back next turn.
It's just his prizes. It's just his prizes at this point.
Is it in his prizes?
Yeah, his second boss is in his prize cards.
Oh, that is a risky place to be.
I think he's turned this into a coin flip at this point. He only has one Pal Pad. He only has 2 boss's orders. Pal Pad's in the discard pile. Boss's orders has just been played. The second one is prized. Next turn, he can obviously attach to Drillbur. Well, I mean, he can also just revert back to handlock the following turn.
I was going to say, is it really a coin flip? Is it a case of, look, if I draw boss's orders, yay, I win next turn. If I don't, oh, there it is, first card.
So that means he does win the aggressive route. If he misses it right, he can go back to defense mode, basically, where he can go for the stamp. Jesse James plays now at 2 cards where he doesn't need the wheezing. So you're right. The 50-50 is win on the spot, basically. And the miss means this game goes on for another 20 minutes and there's Oranguru stuff getting involved.
But he's got boss's orders, he's got energy, he's got Super Rod, he's got a bunch of draw on the board. Do we know what his deck size is at this stage?
His deck is 2, and he can Ordinary Rod for Excadrill that's getting KO'd and guaranteed win. Because he can.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, at that stage, he can basically have a 3-card deck and be drawing 4 cards. So, yeah, he'd be absolutely fine. So, yeah, okay. Then in that case, unless something very strange happens, and let's face it, this has been a pretty strange series so far, it looks like Tord has got this sewn up. It looks like it is as simple as play Super Rod, attach energy, draw with Cinccino, use that make do, and then just boss's orders on the Dedenne and use either of your attacks to win the game. It really doesn't matter. Tobias, once again, is going to go down to 2 prizes remaining, just like in game 1. But just like in game 1, it really does not look like it's going to matter. And imagine, being Tobias here and like, I've navigated this so well, he can't hand disrupt me. And Tord's like, I win on prizes.
That's what's so insane about Tord's list. He plays this one Excadrill, and that's all he needs because he gets himself in that infinite situation with the double Ordinary Rod. He's at the bottom of his deck. He can access every card he needs. And, you know better than anyone that this Excadrill can take these easy prizes better than most. The type covering makes him perfect for punishing the Dedennes, Crobats, and even in the late game, the likes of that Mawile. So what an incredible series we've seen there from both players.
That was very well played from both players. Now, congratulations, Tord does officially take the win 2-1. 1 lock victory, forcing a concession, and 1 attack with Excadrill. And that's one of the cool things I love about Excadrill at the moment. Now, I did for a while play one of the Unified Minds,